So Certify My Company is an organization. They are the leader in diverse and disadvantaged business certification. They were established over a decade ago, and they are located in Henderson, Nevada. They've helped certify over 2,000 businesses, which has driven over $100 million of impact to the gross national product. So they've been doing this quite a long time. They really understand it, and they get all the tricks and the intricacies of this. And trust me, it's pretty challenging. We also partner with an organization called the 8A Authority. Their focus is, as you would imagine, on 8A, which is the small business and the certifications around governmental spend. So when you're looking for things around, airports or some construction projects or other governmental spend, this is the kind of certification that you might want to consider. And they've been around for 20 years. And they've, again, helped thousands of companies and had more than $100 million worth of impact. So as we go ahead and get started, I guess I'm going to open with a little survey. So I would like to understand if any of our audience's members have been certified already. And that certification might come from a state certification. It might come from a private certification, meaning the NMSDC, WeBank, or one of the major names that you may recognize. Or you may say that you are self-certified. So if you are certified, if you could please go ahead and use the that chat feature that's on the Teams. And while you're doing that, I'll just mention that you could say yes, I am already certified, and if so, please tell us with whom or how you are. You might say no, or you might say, I honestly don't have any idea if my company is or it isn't. I might have, I filled out the paperwork and I'm just not really sure what I got. We'd be happy to help you. So if you can finish up your responses, I'm going to give you just a few more seconds, and then I'm going to move on. So I appreciate you filling this out. This just gives us a little bit of idea around, make sure that we're providing you the right answers and something that's going to help your organization. All right, so thank you for filling that out. With this, I am Rob Travia. I'm the Chairman and Chief Executive of the Diversity Consortium. And Heather Cox, I'm going to be introducing right now. Heather is the president of Certify My Company. Hello, Heather. Are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
So, Heather, we're going to go today about who are diverse suppliers. Am I a diverse supplier, and would I be considered? And why does the Diversity Consortium call them XBEs? And then, if there is such a thing as this XBE, tell me about them. What do I need to know? And when we start talking about certification, there are all sorts of acronyms that I hear. So, oh my goodness, there's just so many. Which one's right for me? And so, Heather, when we get to there, I'd love you to tell me a little bit about that and how do I figure out which one's right for me? And for that matter, why should I even get certified? Right? It's just a bunch of time. There's some cost to it. Tell me why. What are my benefits? And if it's really worth it for me, then what's the process of becoming certified? So this is sort of what we're going to talk about today, and then ultimately we're going to hear not only from the experts that are doing this, but we're also going to go through a little case study where one organization helped a whole bunch of their suppliers get certified and what impact that had on them. So with that, Heather, I'd love you to help me understand about the XBE category, and can you sort of frame up for me what an XBE is and what are all these acronyms?
Yeah, there are definitely, it's very an acronym heavy industry, that is for sure. So XBE is actually a newer term because, you can only say MBE, WBE, DOBE so many times when you have to list them all out. And so I think that the supplier diversity industry was like, look, enough is enough with all the different all the different categories, which remain. And then what happens is that a lot of times people will say MBE, meaning as an umbrella term to include all the categories, which is even more confusing because people are like, oh, you're talking about minorities, you're talking about women. Like, it's very confusing. So XBE simply means all the different diversity categories, which are women, minority, LGBT, veteran, disabled, disadvantaged, etc. Right? So when you say XBE, it's just an all-inclusive term.
Awesome. I got it. So with that, we went and did a little bit of homework around these types of XBEs, and there are plenty of certifying bodies out there, but it was really interesting that of the 23 million companies that are out there, only about 1% are actually XBE certified.
It's mind-boggling, I know, because there's so many opportunities that go with it. People just don't know about it, Rob. That is what it comes down to. People just don't know about it. So it's so great that you're doing this educational programming to really support the entrepreneurs out there, because there's so much to be had by the powerful tool that is diversity certification.
It's just sort of funny because we were having a conversation with a Fortune 50 company, and the chief procurement officer said to me, Rob, why do we really need you? We have the access to WeBank. We have access to NMSDC. We know who are the certified businesses, who we know all of the disadvantaged businesses.
No, they know the certified ones, but they don't know the other 20 million that are out there.
And that's the point.
Right.
So, I think what you're going to hear today is from Heather's perspective, from the Diversity Consortium's perspective, that we are having conversations daily with corporations that think they are seeing the breadth of businesses, and they think that they know who's out there, and they really are only looking at 1% of the real population.
And I know, Rob, when I go to conferences and I'll speak to the corporations about what Certify My Company does, I have a great metric to know if they really have a good supplier diversity program or not. If the supplier diversity manager tells me everyone in their supply chain that should be certified is, I know immediately they are completely out of touch with their supply chain.
That is so true. So true. So with all of these acronyms and all of these organizations, which one is right for me?
So this is a really funny slide because some of them don't even certify. Some of them I'd be like, they certify, but what's the point, right? So it is really important. One of the first things we do with any potential client is to determine which certification will best impact them and their business. It might be one certification, it might be two certifications, it might be more than two certifications. But we are not in the business of just throwing spaghetti on the wall. So it's important to know who your target audience is, both who you're currently doing business with, as well as who you want to do business with, because there is a good amount of time that lapses before you're really going to see the ROI on the certification that you get. And I tell people it takes about 2 years to really get into the system. So, NMSDC is great. If you want a private sector, if you're looking to do business with the Fortune 1000 and their community, you want what I call the big five, right? NMSDC, WeBank, NGLCC, NVBDC, and Disability N, right? So now Certify My Company is dual certified as both WeBank and Disability N, because we've found that, there are 14,000 certified women-owned businesses, but there's less than 1,000 disability-owned businesses. So we get a lot more attention, and entrepreneurs like nothing more than a lot of attention. So we're able to really get a lot more access. And I'll tell you, a lot of our corporate clients will ask us for our disability in certification before our WeBank, right? Because those numbers are, there's not as many people that they can count that spend from. Now, if you want to do business with just the state that you live in or the state that your business is in, then you want to look at, does your state have a certification? I know I am headquartered in Nevada. We do not have a state certification. So it really wouldn't matter, right, to the state that I'm in, unless I'm in the construction industry, then I would do the disadvantaged business enterprise. So there's a lot of moving pieces. This could be like an hour-long conversation, just this slide itself on which certification to get. So it's really important before you embark on this crazy pathway of getting certified to make sure you're getting the right certification for your company. And just know the general rule of thumb with certification is he or she who holds the purse strings determines which certification will be recognized, and it is usually contract specific. And I'll give you an example. MGM is a great supporter of diversity, and they usually ask for the big five that we talked about. But when they were building their National Harbor Hotel, the state of Maryland required a very specific certification. So they had to find suppliers with that certification or have their current suppliers then get certified through that organization. So these suppliers probably were chugging along for, 5-10 years with the WeBank or the NMSDC. And then they get this contract for this project and they had to get this other certification. So you could, like I just added the state of Illinois certification for us because we have a contract that requires a state of Illinois certification. So those are the type of things you have to keep, keep attuned to, which is why it's great to have a consultant like Certify My Company on your side to help you with that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. So if that's the case, these are some of the certifications that I hear of. These are these the most common types of certifications?
These are the most common categories. And this is a very important point because people will call me all the time and they say, I want the WBE certification. I'm like, great. Which organization? No, the WBE. I'm like, I get that part, but which organization? So WBE is like saying tissue, right? And I'm saying that because my nose is itching because it's crazy allergy season out here in Nevada. So it's like saying tissues. Well, there's Kleenex is the most well-known brand, but then there's other, there's like Walmart has its own brand and, Kroger has its own brand, right? Of generic ones, whatever. So WBE is just a category. It's just a classification. You have to know which organization is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. So yes, the minority, the women, the disability owned, the veteran owned, the LGBT owned, those are the biggest, most well-known, most common categories. There's also disadvantaged business enterprise, which has a little bit different eligibility requirements and is more focused on construction and specific states. And there's the 8A, which Dick Otero, the 8A authority, is the expert on, and we always send it. He is our partner in crime in that one. We send them all over to him because he really is the expert and knows, and they change their rules like every 2 days. And then there's a service disabled veteran. Now, in the private sector, that goes right in with the veteran-owned business. It is not necessarily a separate category for certification. However, for example, in the state of California, they only certify through the Department of General Services service disabled veterans. They do not certify veteran-owned businesses that are not service disabled. So you really have to know which organization is going to be the best bet for you.
Wow, what a landscape.
I know, right?
So it sounds so confusing. Why would I want to? So all of this confusion, all these acronyms, why should I get certified?
Okay, so yes, it is very confusing. There's a lot of acronyms. The process itself is very invasive. They're going to ask for very sensitive information. The state certifications will ask you for both personal and business information. The private sectors really are only asking for business information. But when you do get the certification, there is so much opportunity. Now, do not think, I like to be very clear, this is not a magic wand, okay? It is a tool. And just like any other tool, it's only as good as the power you put behind it, how you use it. So if you sit back and wait for your $1 million contracts to rain from the sky, you are going to be waiting for a very, very long time. It is not going to happen. Okay, you have to know how to use it. But I'm going to talk about the private sector. It is my sweet spot. It is my preferred certifications that most of our clients go through. Because the private sector really has so many opportunities for both business development as well as company development. And the company development is the component that so many people, too many people, forget about when they're talking about the certification benefits. The obvious is business development. You go to the conferences, you can go on the different websites of the certifying bodies and say, hey, Mr. Bristol Myers Squibb, this is what I can do for you. And by the way, we're diversity certified. You get their contact information. They're at all the conferences, right? You can really walk up to them and say, hey, this is what I do. This is what I can do for you. And by the way, we're diversity certified. That in person, and then that person becomes your internal advocate. Now, if you're not good at what you do, or you're crazy more expensive, I don't care how many certifications you have, you're not getting the gig. You have to be just as good, if not better, and yet your certification will tip the scales in your favor, right? So the other component is the company development, whether it be pitch opportunities, whether it be mentorship opportunities, whether it be educational programming, right? I've been so fortunate. I got a scholarship through my disability and certification to go to the Tuck Business School. That is an executive MBA program that you go through for a week. As a business owner, as a leader in my company, as a manager, it makes me a better business owner, right? And as a better business owner, it automatically makes me do better business with my customers. So those are the type of things you have the opportunity for. My mentor program that I had, so Toyota has a fantastic mentorship program. My mentor was we are just finished the program last week, was the CIO of Toyota North America. Now, Certify My Company sells to the Fortune 1000. So her perspective from the C-suite of a Fortune 100 is invaluable to me. I couldn't pay a consultant enough to have a present day seat in the C-suite of a Fortune 100. So she worked with me on branding. She worked with me on my communication to the corporations because I couldn't figure out the gap from what I was saying to what they needed me to say. Right? So she worked with me on that. Like, those are invaluable opportunities that these certifications offer you.
I got it. And, I will absolutely echo what you just said. Having come from the private world in aerospace and defense, we cared about quality, cost, delivery, and responsiveness. But if you had that certification, that was your advantage.
Yes.
Right. So certainly you had to have quality, you had to have the right
cost. That's
a
non-negotiable, right.
But given all those things as equal, I would choose the diverse business every time.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Right. Awesome. So how would I know if I'm eligible?
So the eligibility requirements are pretty similar across the board for the private sector. Okay, I'm going to repeat this is for private sector, and then I will add in the components for the public sector. So for the private sector, and I'm going to use women just for simplicity, but you can substitute in LGBT, minority, veteran, disability. So the company has to be owned, operated, controlled, and independent. And that fourth part is the one that people often forget about. Ownership's pretty cut and dry. Do you own 51% or more of the company? Now, it is important that I clarify, it is of total ownership. So let's say you have 50 shares of voting, 50 voting shares and 50 non-voting shares. The 51% ownership has to be of total shares, okay? Then the operation. Does a female run the company on a day-to-day basis? It does not have to be the same female that owns the company. It does, however, have to be a female that runs the company, manages the company on a day-to-day basis, and has the highest ranking title per the governing documents. Okay. Now I like to play a little game here. So people I don't know, can people answer the question, Rob?
Absolutely. We could do a survey.
Okay. So here's a question. In a corporation, what is the highest ranking title in a corporation? I love to play this game.
So what do you think it is? I'm going to let them go ahead and enter their response and hit enter. And then Chris, I know you're helping us produce. If you can come back and give us a couple of give us the breadth of answers that you see.
Yeah, what is the highest ranking title in a corporation? Meaning not an LLC, but a corporation.
Right. So I'm going to give folks just a couple more seconds to go ahead and come up with their answers. And let me see.
What do we got?
We got a response of what is the president?
That is correct, and I'm super impressed because most people say CEO. So typically, per the bylaws of a corporation, president is the highest ranking title, not the CEO. Oftentimes, CEO is not even listed in there. So, and I tell people all the time, you can call yourself Queen Unicorn if you want. You just have to make sure the bylaws also say that Queen Unicorn is the highest ranking title then, okay? So now it leads us to control per those same governing documents, which is bylaws for a corporation and an operating agreement for your LLC. Who has ultimate control of the company? And I cannot even tell you how many times I have seen one sentence in these documents render a company ineligible. It is crucial that you really have somebody who knows what they're looking at review these documents for you, right? Then the last is independence. Does the company rely on a non-woman-owned company for essential resources. That includes employees, that includes equipment, that includes vehicles. What do I mean by that? So if you're a printer, if you say you're a printer, but you don't own any of your own print equipment or lease it, and let's say you borrow it from your brother, you borrow it from a friend of yours. If they get mad at you and you cannot use that equipment, you no longer have a business, which means you are not running your company independently. If you're borrowing employees, let's say like you have a sister company or a brother company, you're borrowing employees, they are not your employees. That does not include a PEO, which is the professional employment organization, which is completely different. This is if you just are literally like, oh, let me borrow your accountant team, let me borrow your this team. It has to be done as a service provider. It cannot just be borrowing employees from a non-woman-owned business.
I gotcha. Wow, that's pretty complex.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process of certification. So now that I recognize that this is a good thing and I recognize that it's pretty complex, how do I go about getting certified?
So all of the private sectors and the majority of the states at this point are all online, their application. You're going to be entering information about your general company information, when you started, your tax ID, your state of organization, your headquarter information, all that information. Then you're going to go to ownership. Who owns the company? Is it in a trust? Is it owned directly from you? Is there one owner or 5 owners? All that information is going to be in there, as well as the demographics of the owner, right? Because if you're certifying as an ethnic minority, we need to know if those owners are ethnic minorities. Then we go to management information. Who runs the company on a day-to-day business? Who's on your board of directors? Who's on your advisory board? All of those components are going to go into the application. Real estate information. Do you own your building? Is it leased? If you have more than one facility, all that information has to be in there. Then references. Client references, who you've done business with. Some of the organizations ask for the amount of business, meaning the dollar amount of business you've done with these companies. Other ones just want to know who it is. Now, don't worry, no one's going to see that information. It's really only for the other corporate members that could potentially want to do business with you. So make sure if your goal is to do business with a company like Target, you are going to put a company. So when Target looks at that, they say, oh, you've done business with X, Y, and Z company, you can handle mine, right? But if you only done business with a little tiny, mom and pop in your local town, maybe Target might be too big of a stretch for you at this time. Doesn't mean you can't do it, just means you have to then build up to show them how that you can serve them in the capacity that they need. Banking information, and then the documentation. Now the documentation is what gets people like, scrambled, because there's about 100 documents that they ask for, but they're not all going to pertain to you. And sometimes they're not called the same thing. What something's called in Texas isn't what it's called in New Jersey, isn't what it's called in California. And so people get frustrated and they push to the side and they're like, I'll get to it. And so it's a matter of, making sure you have you need tax returns, you need P&L and balance sheet, you need your bank signature card. That's the document that proves who can sign on behalf of the company. Sometimes you need contracts in there. You need your proof that you are either a U.S. citizen or legal resident and the demographics. So if you're proving that you're a female, you can show your passport. If you're proving that you're LGBT, you might need a marriage license. If you're single, maybe you need some letters of, people affirming that you are LGBT. There's a lot of different documents you need in there, but it's important that you get them done right. You need all your governing documents, stock certificates, bylaws, operating agreement. All that information has to be in there because they are confirming in multiple ways that you are owned, operated, and controlled, right, by the demographic that you're certifying.
I got it. Wow. Well, it sounds like it's pretty complex, but at the same time, boy, is it worth it.
It totally is worth it if you use it, right? It's like a gym membership. People go, they sign up for the gym on January 1st and March 31st. They're like, forget it. I got nothing out of this gym. And I'm like, did you go? Or did you just sign the contract? Like, you have to go. You have to show up. You have to know what you're doing to change your food. Like, you can't just show up even, right? Just show up, know the right machines for your goals, know the right food for your goals, right? Do you want to slim down? Do you want to bulk up? Like, there's people go for different reasons, but you have to know how to utilize this tool, right?
Oh, that's a good point. So, what are some of the challenges that we might face if we're going to go ahead and try to get certified?
So first, make sure your financial documents, your tax returns, match the ownership. I can't tell you how many times we'll look at a K1 and it says it's 50-50 husband-wife, and then the stock certificates say 60-40. Like, what happened? Or if you're a single owner and maybe you file as a sole prop, maybe you're a single member LLC, so you file as a sole prop. Why is your husband's name listed on your tax returns as the sole prop, right? Make sure your CPA, make sure whoever's doing your taxes has the right information in there, because it will be kicked back to you, and it's going to be one of the things they ask, like, why does it say that your husband owns your business if you're saying you're a single member LLC or you're the sole shareholder or whatever it is. Governing documents, those are those bylaws and operating agreements that is probably 90% of the time why people get denied certification, is because there's something in there that requires a unanimous vote. Or, you know, the board is 4 men and 1 woman, and they're, you know, to sell the assets is you only need a majority of the board, right? So there's all those different components that you have to double check for. The trust. Now, as business owners, as diverse owners get more savvy and sophisticated, a lot of them are working on succession planning, and they've put their ownership in trusts. Trusts are amazing and also a big headache for certification if they're not set up correctly, because there are very specific rules, and I am not saying the rules are great. I'm saying they are the rules. So you have to know what they are. You know, for a revocable trust, the grantor, trustees, and present day beneficiaries must all be female if you're getting certified as a woman-owned business. So make sure those, you know, if you have a family trust, it could be problematic for your ownership. And then you have to decide, do I want to move my ownership out of my trust, or the cost outweighs the benefit and I'm not moving it out of the trust? It's only a decision that the business owner can make.
Gotcha. So I understand now about XBEs, and I understand about the certification. And tell me a little bit about the XBE individuals. These are owners. These are
consumers. These are all of us, right? Like, we're all consumers as much as we're business owners. So there's so much to be said about the buying power, because people often ask me, like, oh, what do the corporations get out of having supplier diversity programs? They get tax write-offs, right? I'm like, absolutely not. What they get is more money. Really, the bottom line it comes down to is that corporations are about the bottom line. And study after study shows that corporations with robust supplier diversity programs make more money. Their shareholders make more money. And let's be real, these are for-profit organizations. They want to make money. So, you know, Hispanic buying power is greater than domestic product of Mexico. That is a big number, okay? Women control over 20 trillion of annual global consumer spending. They control over 7 trillion of domestic consumer spending, and they make 85% of all consumer decisions. So the best example I can give you for why companies have supplier diversity programs is retail, because we all go to retail places and we all understand retail. So about 6 years ago, Walmart did a study. Okay, they knew that women control 7 trillion of domestic spending and make 85% of all consumer decisions. So they wanted to know, how can they get more of that money in their pocket? Now, I'm paraphrasing, so if you search for the study, it's not going to say that exact terminology. But they wanted to know how they can, you know, get more of this consumer buying their stuff. So they asked all the consumers some questions about ownership and the products. But one of the questions they asked was to the women buyers. They said, if you went in to buy shampoo, for example, and one bottle was easily identifiable as women-owned and one was not, would you be more likely to buy the product that was easily identifiable as women-owned? So I would love for the audience to type in the chat, what percentage of female consumers said they would be more likely to buy a product if they could easily identify it as women-owned? We'll give them 30 seconds.
That's a great question. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that question, but I'd be interested in.
Yeah, what do you think it is?
What do I think it is? I bet you it's pretty low. I think they're going to choose based on price, and so I would say it would be maybe 10%.
Okay.
But
Chris,
we'll wait.
Do we have anybody answering yet?
We got one answer of 15%.
Okay. The answer is 90%.
What?
90. Now, let me tell you, when I first heard that, I was like, that's stupid. I'm a savvy, sophisticated shopper. There's no way I would ever make a decision about that. And then this is what happened. I was sitting in the audience of a WeBank conference, and CLR, you know that product? It's great, calcium lime rust.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. It's an amazing product. It takes care of your shower heads. They get all like green and funky, right? Especially if you're in a place like Nevada, which has hard water. And the owner of the company, her name is Allison, she was speaking, and she had taken over the company. It was kind of failing, but she took it over and she turned it around and she changed some of the products. And she had a new tagline. She said, our new tagline is, we get rid of yuck. Now, at the time, I only had 3 children, but I said, my house has a lot of yuck in it. I probably could use that product. And then I caught myself saying, and Allison has 3 kids, so if she's telling me I can use it, I could probably use it and it's safe. And oh my goodness, this is exactly how it happens, right? And the funny additional finding in the study was that everybody, not just women, men and women together, assumed the product was better quality when it was easily identifiable as women-owned. Everybody, which is fascinating, right? But think about it. When I moved across country, I hired a female owner, a female moving company, because I was like, I don't want my stuff broken. Like, we don't have a lot of nice stuff, but the few nice things I have, I need them to arrive how they leave. So, and that's exactly what happened. So 90%. Now, lest you think that was a fluke, Wine Intelligence magazine wanted to know the same thing, because this is pre-pandemic, so the number is probably higher now, but 70%, 70, of all wine purchases in the US are made by women. Again, probably higher during this pandemic. But they wanted to know, Wine Intelligence magazine wanted to know, if a wine was easily identifiable as women-owned, would women be more likely to buy it? So Rob, what percentage of women wine purchasers said they'd be more likely to buy a wine if they could easily identify it as women-owned?
Wow.
What percentage?
Well, based on what you just told me, I would guess it would be high. Although, if I didn't know what you just told me about Walmart, I would think it would be around 50-50.
90%.
Wow.
So Walmart's not dumb. They were like, if people will pay 20 cents more for a product, now if it's $20 more, that might, whatever. But, pretty much like we said before, pretty much everything being equal within a little bit of time, right? Because they assume they're getting better value. So they'll pay 20 cents more, $1 more, right?
Yeah.
If $1 more over 20 million people.
That's a big number. If I believe that the quality was the same and the cost was about the same, right? Pennies here, it probably wouldn't matter. And the delivery means that they both have to be on the shelf when I want it.
Correct.
But if it's all of that's the same, I probably would choose the one that's diverse owned.
Right. And especially now, people want to know where their money's going. If there's one little sparkly, sequiny outcome of 2020 is that people have seen the power of diverse and local businesses. So they're now saying, oh yeah, I want, you can go to a big chain coffee shop, or you can go to Starship, which is a local owned business. But what happens when small businesses are out of business? There is a huge unemployment problem, right? So now people realize that they have to support the small, diverse, local businesses. So even more than 6 years ago when they did the study, now people are really realizing it, which is why the largest growing demographic of women certified companies are consumer products, from alcohol to kids products to clothing to everything, right? Because it's really important that people want to buy products that they can feel good about on multiple levels.
Oh, I agree. So tell me about Steve Worth and what you did for him at Intel.
So back in the day, we did a program where they had identified some suppliers that were not certified, but they had a great relationship with. So they asked us to facilitate them through the certification process. And we did, and they were able to, enhance their partnership with these suppliers. These suppliers got a lot more exposure. When a corporation supports their diverse suppliers by helping them get certified, by hiring a company like Certify My Company, it shows them how important diversity really is to the corporation, right? It also says to them, you're a partner with us. You're not just a transaction, you're a partner. And we want to make sure that we're both full from this meal we just had together. We want to always be continually getting benefits. So we were able to really help them on both sides. The corporations were able to see who was a partner to them. They're also able to increase their reportable spend. And they were all with suppliers that they had great relationships with and who provided great service and goods to them. And on the supplier side, they now have these opportunities that we talked about that certification brings, right? And they were able to show this corporation, they said, look, we understand it's important to you, which means it's important to us as well. And that is something that I cannot stress enough. Sometimes corporations will hire us and they'll send over one of their suppliers, and the supplier will say, I don't know if I want to do this. So if a corporation, pro tip, if a corporation says to you, this is important to me, so important that we're hiring a resource to help you, and you say no, what you are in essence telling them is you are not important to me. Your values are not important to me. You are just a transaction. We are not in a relationship, right? It's like with my husband. My husband will say, this is important to me. If I was like, that's cool, but I'm not going to do it, that sends a very powerful message to him that what he wants is not important to me. So if the relationship is important to me, I'm going to say, okay, I think this is stupid, but I'm going to do it because it's important to you. Or yeah, it's a total pain in my butt, but I'm going to do it because you're important to me. So it depends, what message do you want to send to your corporate clients? Do you want to say to them, you're just a transaction? Or do you want to say, yes, we are in a relationship and I am a partner to you?
That's awesome. So given all of that, and I see the benefits, I'd like to understand from the audience, Chris, I know you've probably been collecting questions this whole time. Could you just give us a couple? I do want to be respectful of time, and I want to make sure that we just have time for just a couple.
Yeah, first one, Rob, is how long does it take to certify?
Great question. So from the time you complete your, let me just give you a caveat. I'm going to give you the private sector answer first, and then we'll go to the state and government certifications. So from the time you can submit your completed application and they've asked any questions, any clarifying information, it takes about 90 to 120 days to receive your certification. Now on the state side, it will take anywhere from 90 days to 3 years. It depends on the organization. The state of New York takes approximately 3 years to facilitate a certification, okay? So just know what's, right, that's a great question to ask, because you have to know if you have a client asking for a certification, you need to know how long it's gonna take, and which is why I tell clients, you always wanna be certified before you need it, because once you need it, it might just be too late.
I got it. Okay, Chris, next question.
Next question is, what if I fall into multiple categories?
Great question. Do you have a slide moving forward for that, Rob? About multiple categories? Yes. If you fall into multiple categories, get them all if you can, okay? Because, as I said before, like we are both WeBank and Disability In certified. We're also CPUC certified. We're also State of Illinois certified because different clients of ours need different certifications. Now, as far as my private sector goes, as I said, like there's a lot less disability-owned businesses, so you can't double dip as a corporation. You can't count me twice as a woman and a disability-owned, but you can move me if you need to. So a lot of our corporate clients count us in their disability reportable spend because they have a lot of women-owned businesses in their supply chain already. They don't have a lot of disability. So by having multiple certifications, you become that much more valuable to your clients.
I got it. And I think, Chris, we'll probably have time for just one more. And by the way, if your question does not get answered, again, we're going to make sure that you get answers to every one of your questions. So just rest assured you'll get an email. If you, whatever email you've provided when you signed in, we'll make sure to get you an answer back. And I'm also going to provide some contact information at the end if you'd prefer to pick up the phone and give me a ring, or if you'd like, I can help get you in touch with Heather. So Chris, let's just take one more question if that's okay.
Yeah, last question is, how do I begin the process to certify?
Well, the first step is to figure out which certification is best for you in your business, right? That's step number one. Then let's say you do WeBank. You go to webank.org, WBENC.org, and you start your certification process. That's really what it takes. Now, if you are tight on time, if you realize that your time is worth more than how, I will tell you, we did a poll of our single member or single owner clients because it was the easiest, the least amount of variables in there. And I asked them how long they think it would take to do the process if they had not hired Certify My Company. The average was 26 hours, okay? When I then asked them how long it took because they invested in Certify My Company, the average was 2 hours. So you have to determine how much that 24 hours would cost you. And if it's greater, if it's less than what it costs to hire a consultant, hire then you can do it yourself if you have time. Most entrepreneurs are doing a million different things, and this is not their core competency. So you probably want to outsource the process to somebody that can help you, okay? You are, as I said before, you're going to be giving them very sensitive information. Make sure your consultant has a great cybersecurity team behind them. And if you're hiring, and that's why you don't really want to give it to your assistant or just a friend, because again, it's very sensitive data that you don't want to be hacked or got into.
I got it. Well, thank you so much, Heather. What a pleasure this has been speaking with you. Again, from the Diversity Consortium, we offer the XBE Thrive series. This is an overview of the different kinds of services and things that you may want to consider as a business, as a diverse or disadvantaged business, as what we're calling XBEs. Our next session is on the 26th, which goes into what is an XBE and will help. You may hear some of the similar things that you heard today, but you'll also learn a little bit more about the spending power and the different ways that an XBE gets recognized and how corporations go and find XBEs. There's a lot to it. So we look forward to you all joining. And then you'll see the balance of the calendar. These are things that we hold every month. And also you're going to find on our website, and I'll go to one more slide here, we have micro topic sessions, and these sessions are deep dives, if you will, around each of these various services that we provide. And again, this is not about us selling, but it's more about us making you aware. So I hope that you found this information helpful. Thank you so much, Heather. You've been a super valuable resource in helping me understand about the certification process. And these are things that you're going to find every month. So if you missed this or you heard this, but you want to hear it again, or you'd like to get some more of your team and say, hey, come on, let's go listen to this. We're going to be offering these every month, and you'll hear them on our website. And there is our website, thediversityconsortium.com. I'm going to give this slide about 60 seconds. So in the event someone would like to jot down this information, I am Rob Travia, and there is my mobile number. So please feel free to call me, and I will be able to help get you in touch with the right expert. And if it's around certification, you just heard from her. Her name is Heather Cox. And, she is the Wonder Woman of certification. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure. I hope you have a great afternoon, and I will be available for any additional questions or comments after the webinar ends. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.